It's a massive opportunity cost. It is going to be very difficult for you really to harness the true potential of AI if you haven't done your work in establishing the proper data strategy. You need to have that foundation first to be able to layer the capabilities on top of that, and AI is absolutely a capability.
Data strategies too often get mired in technical details or remain overly simplistic, failing to connect with the real goals of the organization. A successful strategy should resonate with executive leadership, emphasizing how data initiatives directly support the organization's mission and critical goals. By clearly articulating the value of data in business terms, data leaders can secure executive sponsorship, ensuring alignment and resources for impactful initiatives. I have with me today Ryan Brunette, author of our blueprint, Build a Robust and Comprehensive Data Strategy. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you, Isabel.
Now tell us, Ryan, in today's climate, AI and data privacy is top of mind for organizations. Why is it so important to have a comprehensive data strategy?
It's important because sadly, most organizations still fail to really connect the value of data to their strategic drivers of their business. As AI has become ever more prevalent on the top of minds of executives, of boards, a lot of teams are playing catch up, trying to figure out how do we get the most out of these new technologies to really move the needle for our business. AI needs data. There's a lot of integration that happens. If you don't have good quality data for your AI systems, you're not going to get good outcomes, right? So really understanding what does a business want to accomplish, right? What is really going to move the needle? AI fits quite nicely in that, right? You can't have an AI solution and a comprehensive AI strategy if you don't have your ducks in a row when it comes to data, right? So it's very important at a foundational level to have a data strategy first, to make sure that you have your foundation and your house built to be able to stand some of these advanced capabilities on top of them.
Ryan, what are we hearing from our colleagues in the field right now?
We're hearing that a lot of people are still struggling really to gain the trust of their executives' teams. Sadly, a lot of data functions are still sequestered in a far corner of IT. They're still seen as order takers within a business, right? They're really struggling to gain the trust of the organization and again, really move the needle, right? So we have a lot of organizations that struggle to articulate what that value is, to connect the dots between what they're working on and what the business needs. We see a real need to help data leaders sort of evolve those capabilities from a business aspect, not a technology aspect. A lot of data leaders, very sound from a technical perspective. It's the connecting the dots to the business and creating sort of that story and that narrative that can get your executive excited, that can get that buy-in, that can get you the support you need to execute your program.
Ryan, in our research, we write that data strategies are often just these long lists of tasks or initiatives. Sometimes they're done in isolation and they're not really connected to business goals. Tell us why it's so important to build a data strategy that's connected to and aligned to goals.
It's your first step in graduating you from order taker to trusted partner, right? You need to articulate that what you're doing is going to drive value for the stakeholders that are ultimately using and applying your data, right? You need to move from just adding this field to this database, just building this report, to really understanding what is possible with data. What are the applications of data? How do those apply to the strategic priorities of my organization?
Ryan, in your research, you make an interesting point. Your data isn't special. That's what you're telling our members. Data in isolation is simply raw information with no inherent value. It only becomes meaningful when it is aligned with and actively drives the organization's strategic goals. Exactly. Can you expand on that?
Exactly, Isabel. It's like a car sitting in your garage. It's nice to look at, but it's not getting you from point A to point B. You need to take your data and you need to drive towards value. You can have the most pristine data set, you can have the most pristine infrastructure, but if you're not applying it in the right way, it's really not doing anything for your organization. There's a lot of a lot of hype around data being the new oil, data being a strategic asset. But the caveat to that is you need to understand how to apply it. The organizations that do really well and really maximize value for their organizations are the ones that understand those downstream applications, the ones that are creating initiatives and capabilities that really align to what the organization wants to accomplish strategically. And those are the ones that are moving the needle.
Absolutely. This brings us to our third insight. In your research, you write about earning your right. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Your data strategy isn't your execution plan, and a lot of individuals and organizations, unfortunately, they mix the two up. They show up to an executive boardroom with a list of tasks that are really sort of data management tasks. This is when you lose the room very quickly. What your data strategy does, like I have said, it articulates what you're doing to drive value. It's the first step in gaining trust, gaining the time and space to execute, and getting that check to be able to go and start to build these capabilities.
So Ryan, what are the best organizations doing differently?
They're spending time with their business, right? They're not coming up with technical first concepts in isolation. They're having their conversations with their executive team, understanding what's important with them. They're having conversations with their various functional groups, understanding what's important for them, what they need, what they want to accomplish. They're translating that into a set of initiatives that is going to support those functions. It's doing the homework and getting the right people at the table and having the right conversations. A lot of organizations do not put the time in this, and they end up with a strategy that really is leaving a lot on the table, right? It's creating an opportunity cost. You really need to spend your time with your organization and your different groups, and the ones that really are at the top of the chain with respect to their data and analytics capabilities, they're the ones who have these trusted partner relationships.
Ryan, what is the risk of not having a comprehensive data strategy?
It's a misalignment with what you're doing from a data perspective and what your business needs. That's number one. Number two, it's a massive opportunity cost. With modern technologies, especially with AI, there's a real opportunity to drive value for your organization. Yes. It is going to be very difficult for you really to harness the true potential of AI if you haven't done your work in establishing like the proper data strategy for your organization. All right, you need to have that foundation first to be able to layer the capabilities on top of that, and AI is absolutely a capability. It doesn't stand on its own. It is very tightly integrated with your data capabilities.
Joining us on the panel today is Steve Willis, Principal Research Director, Ryan Burnett, Principal Research Director, Igor Ikonikov, Advisory Fellow, and Ari Glazel, AVP Research Development. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
From our conversation earlier, Ryan, we stressed the importance of ensuring that our data strategy is aligned to the business. It does take a long time to interview stakeholders and get lines of businesses all on the same page. As you know, we're often faced with extreme pressures to get a data strategy out there. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that in some cases it's okay to skip that step?
I don't, and those conversations can be difficult, but your data strategy shouldn't be comprised of a bunch of data initiatives that really were formulated based on a guess. As a data leader, you really need to understand what your business needs, not what you think it needs.
And it's also important from the buy-in perspective, right? It's conversation with your stakeholders, with people who are supposed to benefit from your strategy. Therefore, if you get their involvement early in the process, then chances for success are much higher. And they will be more appreciative of the work that you put into data strategy implementation.
Igor brings up a very important point. It's not just about making sure you're aligned with the business needs, but there is another alignment question too. You want to make sure that you're bringing people along for the journey and along for the ride. Mm-hmm. You could have the most beautiful and wonderfully, technically perfectly laid out data strategy. Yeah. If no one cares about it, if no one felt they were part of the process, then it will surely fail.
Mm-hmm. There's this idea that we don't need to focus on the downstream application of our data. That all we need to worry about are our databases and our tech stack. What do you think about this? Comment.
What is the downstream use of your data? That's where you generate business value. having a great technology stack doesn't do anything if it doesn't deliver business value. So you have to be entirely anchored in understanding what your needs are and how you deliver that. Tech stack is obviously a part of that solution, but it's only a part of that solution. So you really have to focus on downstream. If you're thinking that that's not the case, you're not going to achieve the goals that your business wants you to achieve.
Yes.
I would say there are two sides of the coin, right? On the one side, you have to be fully accountable for the data that is under your purview, like a good farmer who grows produce. But on the other side, you grow the produce to deliver as a product, same as your data. It should be consumed as a product, and you should take care of make your product consumable, make your product easily understandable and of trusted quality.
I would add on, even from an efficiency of resources perspective, what are you working on and why are you working on it? If you're spending a lot of time building an infrastructure and there's nothing being done with it or nothing being done with that specific grouping of data, you're really consuming unnecessary company resources, right? And you're just putting yourself in a position where you're further perpetuating a lack of trust. You really kind of want to get to a sweet spot with data where you're able to, as they say, fly the jet while you build it, right? You want to get to be able to articulating value as quickly as you possibly can, because in the long run for your program, it's going to buy you more time and space to really focus in on those finer data management capabilities.
Ari, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, in a way, it happens a lot with our members. We see it, and it's almost understandable. There's something wonderfully comfortable for a very technical person to just play around in their tech stack, right? And they believe their days are busy, so they must be doing important things, right? Part of what we talk about in not only our data strategy research, but in our other supporting pieces of research, that there's a lot of hats you need to put on, and there's a lot of concerns that you need to address, in order to truly make sure that you're providing something that is aligned to what the business needs and what's going to help the business achieve their organizational objectives.
We often hear objections from our members around how difficult it is to build a data strategy, especially in environments where the data teams are scattered or distributed across the organization. What advice can we offer our members to help them address this challenge?
Structure your strategy properly. The recommended operating model for data analytics is hub and spoke. So you have to understand what is in your hub, where you can rationalize your technology spend, what can you reuse, and how much freedom each of your spoke needs, right? They may be quite different. So in your strategy, you have to account the level of maturity, the level of, say, capability, analytical capability of each of your spokes. But at the same time, your strategy has to be realistic. And it can only be realistic if you can evaluate all the needs and weigh them against your capabilities and propose the right budget, propose the right implementation plan.
You also need to be thoughtful about who's on your strategy team. It's not a one individual job. It's likely a group of folks that are coming together and putting their heads together to really determine what's right for the organization.
I'll say it even more strongly. If you just have a group of 3 people from head office, if I could use that loose term, defining your data strategy, then you're doing it wrong. Really, you're always going to have, you should, in an ideal model, as Igor said, you should have more of a hub and spoke model. And there's clearly advantages and different disadvantages to a fully federated versus a fully centralized model. But really, you do want to have something a little bit more balanced. And when you asked that question, immediately thought about, well, this is really turns into a structure question pretty quickly. Like where does data analytics sit in the organization?
I think the interesting thing about that, though, is that's operating model, not strategy.
Thank you.
So strategy in a federated organization typically has 2 components. You have the enterprise strategy, which is focused typically on the enterprise data assets that perform across the whole organization. And you have a localized view of that. And if you work in a federated organization, you can't ignore the fact that actually has to happen. how you execute the strategy of federation is actually your operating model. So the goals of your strategy shouldn't change. They should be aligned to achieving your corporate goals and your functional business line goals. And a strategy can do both of those things. Where you have a challenge in a federated model, particularly a governance and in strategy and execution, is at the governance layer. It's about ensuring that the direction of a functional line aligns to the standards and practices you set at an enterprise level, and also that you execute in alignment with both of the objectives of both of those strategies. It's actually okay to have two different strategies.
So it's about decoupling the operating model from your strategy
100%.
and then adapting the operating model to your organization.
Because what we often see in organizations is that your operating model will flex. Like there are different ways.
Yes.
So typically the reason why you have business aligned data teams is because most organizations see that as the fastest way to get value from data, because you put the data expertise closest to the people that use and understand the data. So yeah, you absolutely have to, that will flex. And sometimes if your challenge is best practice, you will have more of a centralized model to start with, and you'll push more of a federated model later. We see flex. That's not your strategy. Your strategy goals don't change. Your operating model adjusts to deliver the strategy.
So I have a follow-up question for Steve here. So you're absolutely right. In our research, we don't really heavily lean into operating model when we're talking about a strategy by design. But surely there must be some consideration or some living in some reality where there is, you kind of know what you're going to have in a way, or is that something that we really should be more disciplined in kind of divorcing ourselves from?
I think you have to, and in Ryan's research with the translator model, you're going to be working with all of those particular business lines.
Yes,
you kind of already know that that's there.
Yeah,
so
that's what I mean. I probably didn't mean to talk over. There's a pragmatism there that you're right. I mean, we've seen way too many strategies where there's really fine fine tactical details and fine organizational charts and whatnot, and that's not necessarily I think what we're implying there. But you need to have an idea what you're pushing towards in a strategy.
Sorry, 100%.
Yeah.
That's not just for operating model, it's also about understanding your current capabilities.
Yes,
not
exactly.
Maturity capability assessment in your strategy, but you still need to have an understanding of what's possible today versus kind of what you want to achieve.
Yeah, okay.
I think it also touches on something really interesting around, we talk a lot about strategy being aligned to business goals, but it's also the culture of your business. Like, what's the Peter Drucker saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's absolutely true, right? So if you're creating a strategy that's devoid of how the culture of your organization works, it's never going to succeed. So you actually have to listen and hear your organization. It comes down to what Ryan's always emphasizing is the more conversation you have with your business lines, the more you understand the culture of the organization you have to sort of work in line with.
Yeah, it's you want to be strategy first, but not strategy only in terms of how you think about this.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Right.
We've highlighted some of the issues that our members are facing when it comes to building a robust data strategy. What is the most challenging aspect of building a strategy?
If I am to pick one only, because there are several
only one.
One only would be translating business requirements into specific data strategy initiatives and then synthesizing strategy goals out of those initiatives. So this translation process, in my humble opinion, probably is the most difficult one, but that's why we refreshed our blueprint, and the new blueprint is trying to address that problem specifically. And on top of that, there's always advisory services that Infotech provides to help you.
I would agree with that. Data is very unique in the sense is that it touches every end of your business, right? Not only is it codifying what is happening in your business, you're actually using that information to enhance processes and enhance outcomes. So there's the technical aspect of what you need to do, as well as understanding the application and the commercial side of things. That's why as a data leader, you need to sit in the middle. You can't be too much of a strategist. You'll lose sight and you'll fail on the technical aspects of it. If you focus too much on the technical aspects of it, you'll fail on the strategic side and the application side. You need to tread that line for your organization. Just the range of things that you need to think about and things that you need to consider it is quite wide, wider than say somebody working in finance, for example. right? So that's when it comes back. It always, for me, comes back to having those conversations, building those relationships, understanding what's important to your stakeholders, because at the end of the day, that's going to take you from zero to hero, as they say.
I agree with both of those comments. I think what springs to mind listening to both Igor and Ryan is it's a team game, right? A strategy is not done by one person. One person might be accountable for it, but you've got to bring the right people in for the right conversations. You have to engage the business. You have to synthesize and understand their challenges. Most people don't necessarily think about it that way around. Treat it like a project, really. You've got to go through the steps to be able to produce a good outcome. My personal take on what's the hardest thing is how do you make it resonate with your business stakeholders? One of the things that we see very often with data strategies is they're very loosely coupled to value. It's like, hey, we do this and it will drive some customer retention or a bit of...
Very hard to prove, right?
Well, that's where the challenge comes in, because you have to negotiate with your business stakeholders. It's like, hey, if we deliver this X, what does that enable you to deliver? Can you tangibilize that in value? That has to come in order for your strategy to resonate with your executive. It can't be flowery. It has to be to the point. It has to tell them how you're going to enable them to achieve their goals. For me, strategy is not an alignment, it's an enablement piece. You want your executive to come out of the room saying, I know how we're going to use data to enable me to achieve my goals and help my organization achieve its mission. It has to be that clear, and that's the hardest part. And it comes down to the distillation process. That's not an easy thing to get to. We've tried to codify that to make it easier for you to do it, but don't underestimate how much of a challenge that is.
And keep going with that for a second. It touches on probably one of the hardest things for people to understand, and it's if you're not used to. I'll use the colloquial term managing up and being able to talk to these different groups. It becomes extremely frustrating. I mean, I've heard from colleagues in the past who maybe don't have as much experience with this saying that they just don't understand what I'm trying to say. Well, that's on you, the requester, rather than the person receiving the information. And this is actually a tough lesson for many people to realize. And a lot of the people that we have the privilege of talking to, I mean, they're at different, they're all at different stages in their maturity. And for some, coming out of that technology bubble of data to start talking to the business is a significant challenge. And as much of our time is spent talking about the technical aspects of data as it is on here's how you talk to leadership to help you get your vision realized.
It's about knowing that common language to be able to translate. Yes.
We have a mantra actually in the strategy refresh, which is simplicity on the far side of complexity. As a translator, you actually have to understand the complexity, not just for the data environment, but how your business actually operates. And then you have to distill that into something that's very simple and powerful that your executives can understand. And the reason why that's so important is once your strategy is signed off and approved and you have the funding, you get into the day-to-day execution of the things that are going to enable you to deliver your strategy. You need your executives to remember exactly what they need to prioritize when you have points of friction. And the strategy is the way that they remember that. It's the most important thing that you can get, because you can't execute on the strategy if they're not clear on what the vision of it is.
Repetition becomes key. Yep.
And so what Steve was just talking about there touches on the question that the back and forth we were having before, where, I mean, we're working really hard to separate your strategy from your tactics, but you need to be somewhat tactic aware. You need to be kind of aware that, hey, this is how this strategy is probably going to be used. Like, you can't, some people make the mistake, they over-rotate and completely ivory tower themselves in terms of how they lay out their strategy, but that's not quite what we should be doing. And I think Steve eloquently laid out the balance that you need to have there.
And I would add one more thing, which is not covered by our blueprint, but very important for successful data strategy. That is, someone has to be genuinely passionate about it. You have to have a true leader who would inspire everyone else to think differently, to go for a change, no matter how complex the change might be. You have to have a true inspirational leader leading the strategy.
Thank you for your time today and the great discussion.
It's great to be here as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bringing us back to the research methodology, Ryan, can you help us understand, walk us through the approach?
Yeah, absolutely. The first step, as I've emphasized, is always understanding your business, right? You want to understand it at a strategic level, right? What is your company trying to accomplish in the long run? What are all of your different functional units doing to support that? As a data leader, it's then your objective to synthesize that into the art of the possible, right? As a leader, a data leader in particular, the ones who really shine in the role, they're one part commercial savant, one part technical guru. They're able to translate sort of what your sales function needs, what your marketing needs, into what you can build from a data perspective, what you can do from an analytics perspective. So there's this translation aspect that really occurs. Once you have that set of initiatives that you're confident can drive those outcomes for your business, you then translate that back into a meaningful set of strategies for your business, strategies that align to your corporate goals, right? So there's this synthesis and translation process. The best CDOs, the best data leaders, the best analytics leaders, they're the ones who wear that translator hat and wear it very well.
Any final thoughts, Ryan, on why our members need to follow our methodology and how we're going to help them achieve those goals?
There's a lot of possibility with what you can do with data. There's a lot of possibility with what you can do with AI. There's a lot of possibility with what you can do with basic analytics, right? But all of that is enabled by data. As we say in the industry, garbage in, garbage out. If your data is not up to a standard, not up to a certain standard, you're not going to be able to do stuff that really pushes the needle. Right? So your strategy as a data leader is step one on that. It's about defining what you need to do to enable yourself and future-proof yourself to really drive value for your organization.
I understand we offer a workshop for our members to actually implement this methodology. Can you help us understand what we would look to achieve within 5 days?
Really what we're trying to do is walk you through the thought process and the framework to be able to engage your business, to be able to pull out those key priorities, to be able to distill those down into a robust set of initiatives, to present them in a way and in a language that is going to resonate with your executive team. Really to enable you to build a business first, not a technology first strategy. So we walk you through that process.
Any final thoughts on why our members need to follow our methodology? And can you walk us through that methodology step by step?
So it starts with, again, understanding what your business really needs or what your organization needs at a corporate strategic level and at a functional level. It's about distilling what they're asking for and what they're trying to accomplish into the art of the possible from a data and analytics perspective. It's about translating those into a set of coherent strategies, a set of coherent initiatives that are very tightly mapped to those goals. And again, it's translating that back into terminology and into a language that is going to resonate. At the end of the day, executive leadership cares what they want to know what they're getting. They're less concerned about how you're doing it, more concerned about what they're going to get. So this is only step one in your journey as a data leader. It's about gaining the trust of the leadership. Step two is starting to go through the motions of how you actually do it.
So you answered my question, which is, is this a one and done deal? It sounds like no. You've got to keep iterating. This is a journey that we want our members to
Data and analytics, as I say, it's always a journey. It's not a destination. As you continue to evolve, priorities change, the landscape changes. As you've seen with what's happened with AI, new capabilities come to light. There are always creative ways that you could utilize data to improve your business outcomes. That is very much a living and moving and breathing thing. You need to approach it in the same way. You need to be able to not necessarily course correct, but stay on top of what's happening and understand the various ways that you can drive value for your organization.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ryan. If you're interested in learning more, you can look up our blueprint on infotech.com. Build a robust and comprehensive data strategy.